I don't have a whole lot to report. We have changed the way that we roll out our reports each month. Those are now made public to anybody on our website from a monthly report that has your call volume stats for every agency that we dispatch for. It also has all the stats for the 911 center. Bad news is we had to pass a deficit budget this year. We had to dip into our revenue or our reserve funds of about $200,000. Being the director, I cannot allow the district to continue doing that. So over the next year, we'll be looking at that strongly to see what services we can reduce if revenues are not increased. We'll also be probably having the state come within the next year to talk about actually what is required and what is not. And you all will probably be invited to that meeting whenever it occurs. So, anybody have any questions for me?
What's your biggest expense?
Personnel costs. The way we make our budget is the state says that there's certain things that we have to do before we can even look at personnel. So we build our budget and then the personnel goes on at the very end, and that's this year's what caused it to go over. We do overestimate our expenses, but we don't expect to be able to bring in enough to take care of that deficit for this year. The state only allows us to do that for about 2 years, and then if we don't make the cuts, then they make it for us. So, but our highest expense is personnel costs. There's several ways for us to do that, to prevent it. A lot of your other districts, you see them basically taking their pay scale and aligning that with whatever, usually the county or the cities that contribute to the dispatching portion. And then if the counties or the cities, get a COLA increase, they increase that on the contribution. That way that pay scale is always provided for. But unfortunately, this county hasn't ever done that.
Does the municipalities help fund the personnel to answer calls for them, or is it just a contribution?
For this county,
Yes.
municipalities does not pay at all in this county. We started talking about that this year. There was a strong backlash on it. There was even some questions from county commissioners whether the county pays for municipalities' dispatching services. And that's something I've been talking to the mayor about. It's time for our interlocal agreement to be signed again. Our current agreement with the county says that the county's contribution pays for only the agencies that are within the unincorporated area of the county. And that's language that we need to try to figure out. I don't know if this committee wants to push that or what. I don't. What do you think, Mayor?
I think it's probably, you're right. The agreement says just unincorporated areas. I'm not sure if I answered correctly your email from last week or so, but municipalities need to kick in something. They really do.
I would agree, because dispatching services is not a required service that we have to provide. It only makes sense because we've already got the equipment, we've got some personnel there. But once you start adding the dispatch services on it, you have to increase your personnel, which means those agencies that we dispatch for should be paying for those personnel.
Like you said, the municipalities are using the county dispatch.
That is correct.
But we've got to keep in mind, those residents pay property tax, county property tax.
But that goes back the same way that we're not a county organization.
Could you operate if the cities, if they did not fund you at all through their property tax, the 4 or 5 cities in the county then?
If we only done 911 services, yes, we can. If we only do 911 services, I'll gladly say we would not need a contribution from anybody, including the county. The state pays for 911. The state does not, the state 911 funds is not intended to pay for dispatching services. It's two different things. So once you add the dispatching services on it, then that's where we have to have the contributions to pay for those other required personnel.
Can you further elaborate just for those in the room and watching that may not know? We understand the 911 services. The other dispatching services, what would those include?
Your 911 service includes making sure the infrastructure is in place in the county to receive that 911 call. And then once we receive it, we have to do something with it. Whether that be transfer it to the agency. We direct dispatch, which means we go ahead and give that call out to the agency. Once that call is gone, that it's gave to the agency, then that turns over to what you would say would be dispatch services of keeping up with all their times. On the law enforcement side, your NCIC services, your checking for warrants, registrations, driver's license, keeping up with all their non-emergency stuff. And the same way on the EMS and rescue side of any non-emergency. Once that call is gave out, then that's a dispatch service. I would strongly like to see our pay scale aligned with county pay scales. If there's a COLA increase gave, like at the county, then that contribution automatically increases that amount, so we can continue with our current pay scale.
I think that'd be a discussion for next budget year.
That would be an easy way to make sure that it's always funded at the proper amount.
Personnel committee to the budget committee. Both of them.
We're still good this year, it's just the state won't allow us to do it in a couple of years, or a couple times in a row before they step in, so. And it is totally our personnel costs that causes it to go over.
If the state were to step in, what would, because I know the issue before, we've had people say, well, the state can't, they're not gonna do this. What would the state do if they had to step in?
So we're gonna take the statute, and the way that statute wrote is required services, permissible services, and not permitted services. We're gonna make sure that we hit every line of the required first, and then we're gonna go to the permissible if we have funding left, and say then you can start doing these things. Things that is not, that's permissible, that's not required is one, your non-emergency dispatching. We do all NCIC services for the county and the cities. That's not required. And basically, once you take the 911 call and do something with it, everything else we do is not required. So, but they would start looking at those and start reducing them until we get our budget where it should be.
Anybody else in the committee got any questions for Lynn?